Just 4 miles. That's all that separates the arrivals hall at John F. Kennedy International Airport from the tennis courts of Flushing Meadows. Both places sit in Queens, but the road connecting them tells a much bigger story. Along Roosevelt Avenue, a stretch of New York that has long been known as Little Manila, Filipino culture is impossible to miss. And for Alex, that connection means something different. Because as she arrives in New York, she isn't simply entering another tournament city. She's stepping into a community that has been waiting for her.
Especially here in North America. So maybe in New York I'll have a bit more time, and I know there are a lot of places there.
Just 4 miles. That's the distance between the arrivals hall at John F. Kennedy International Airport and the tennis courts at Flushing Meadows. 4 miles through Queens. 4 miles along roads that lead from one of the world's busiest airports straight into the heart of New York's tennis world. But there is something else along that route. A community. For generations, Roosevelt Avenue has been closely associated with New York's Filipino community. Restaurants, stores, churches, businesses, and cultural organizations have made this part of Queens feel like a little piece of the Philippines thousands of miles from home. And now Alex is arriving in the middle of it. At just 21 years old, Alex has reached a career-high ranking of number 20 in the world. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Because Alex doesn't have something most tennis stars take for granted. She has never had a WTA tournament in her own country. There is no regular home event in Manila where thousands of Filipino fans can simply walk into a stadium and watch her play. And yet, somehow, Alex keeps finding home crowds everywhere she goes. Washington, Toronto, Cincinnati, and now New York. That raises a much bigger question. Where did all these fans come from? The easy explanation is that Alex is simply becoming a superstar. Her victories brought attention. Her ranking climbed. More people discovered her. More fans started following her. And yes, that is absolutely part of the story. But it isn't the whole story, because Filipino tennis fans were already there. They were there long before Alex became a WTA champion. They were there before Wimbledon, before Cincinnati, before Toronto, before Washington, and even before her breakthrough at the US Open. Alex didn't create this community. She gave it someone to rally behind. That difference changes everything. Look at what happened during her recent North American run. In Washington, Filipino flags filled the stands as Alex pushed toward her first WTA title. In Toronto, thousands of fans turned out for her matches. Then came Cincinnati, where the support surrounding Alex became impossible to ignore. And now, she is heading into the US Open with an entire diaspora ready to make itself heard. This isn't simply a fan base being created match by match. It's a community finally getting the opportunity to celebrate one of its own on the biggest stage in tennis. And there is evidence that this story goes much further back. Alex's breakthrough didn't begin in 2026. It didn't even begin in 2025. Go back to September 2022. Alex was only 17 years old when she won the US Open Junior Girls Singles title at Flushing Meadows. She became the first Filipino singles Grand Slam champion at any level. And Filipino fans were already there. They weren't waiting to see whether Alex would become a star. They were celebrating her before the rest of the tennis world knew what was coming. That is why the atmosphere around Alex feels so different today. The crowd didn't suddenly appear because she became world number 20. The crowd was waiting for a moment like this, and Alex finally gave them one. Of course, that doesn't mean she isn't attracting new fans. She absolutely is. Every big victory introduces her to another audience. Every televised match brings more people into the story. Every upset makes more tennis fans curious about the young left-hander from Quezon City. Her fan base is growing. But growth is not the same thing as creation. The Filipino community supporting Alex already existed. The restaurants were already there. The churches were already there. The businesses and cultural organizations were already there. The families who had built lives across Queens, New Jersey, Toronto, Washington, and other North American cities were already there. Alex simply gave them a reason to gather inside a tennis stadium. And that is why the phrase home court advantage means something completely different for her. Alex doesn't have a traditional home tournament. Instead, she carries her home with her. When she walks onto a court thousands of miles away from Manila, Filipino flags appear. When she serves, the crowd roars. When she wins a point, an entire section erupts. And when she walks away after a match, those fans aren't just supporting a tennis player. They're supporting someone who represents them. That connection became impossible to miss during Alex's first U.S. Open breakthrough. In 2025, she faced Clara Towson in the opening round. Alex was ranked well outside the top 20 at the time, and she was considered the outsider. But she fought back from 5-1 down in the deciding set, and eventually won the match. Even then, the crowd was loud enough that Towson complained about the noise during the match. That was the early warning. Something unusual was happening around Alex. And now, 1 year later, the scale is completely different. Alex arrives in New York as a WTA champion. She comes in ranked number 20 in the world. She has already beaten some of the best players on tour. She has made history for Philippine tennis. And she is walking into the same city where her story began to explode on the international stage. That makes this US Open different. Because this time, Alex isn't arriving as an unknown teenager hoping to surprise everyone. She's arriving as one of the most talked about young players in women's tennis. But there is still one thing nobody can predict. What happens when the first ball is struck? No crowd can guarantee a victory. No ranking can guarantee a deep run. And no amount of hype can protect a player from a bad day. Alex knows that better than anyone. Her Cincinnati loss to Amanda Anisimova was a reminder of how quickly momentum can disappear. She had opportunities. She had moments when the match looked within reach. And then everything changed. That's tennis. That's why the US Open story isn't about predicting the result. It's about understanding what Alex is walking into. She isn't entering Flushing Meadows alone. She's entering a community that has been waiting for this moment for years. A community that existed before the headlines, before the sponsorships, before the rankings, before the WTA title, and before the rest of the world discovered Alex. 4 miles separate JFK from Flushing Meadows. But for Alex, those 4 miles represent something much bigger. They connect her arrival in New York with a community that already feels like home. The same community that watched her win the Junior US Open title. The same community that celebrated her breakthrough in 2025. The same community that filled stadiums in Washington and Toronto. And the same community now preparing to make itself heard at Flushing Meadows. Alex didn't create this crowd, she awakened it. And whatever happens at the US Open, one thing is already certain. When Alex walks onto the court in New York, she won't just be playing in another tournament. She'll be playing in front of people who have been waiting a long time to see one of their own reach this stage. She belongs. And now, the world is finally starting to understand why.